Okay. So I don't know if Mike, you can answer this question or Carl, but so obviously I know I voted last week. So obviously we are in the season already. So if organizations and groups are looking for maybe some of this guidance, is it too late because essentially the polls have started, or what can you see something that you'd have an opportunity to help on now at this point, that we're trained as in many cases have left the station?
Well, and I think that's a great question. Here we are in late October. So if you're talking about this general election here, that's coming up in a matter of, well, days technically,
Mhm.
then then the first thing I would say is, it's not too late to better understand the problems that you're facing. Yeah, is it realistic to say that on October 30th, a team like ours will come in and rescue the day? Expectations wise, that might be a bit much, but because there is going to be so much national and local attention
Right.
on these matters, this is a great opportunity for organizations. You're pretty much going to, dance with who brought you at this point. But
Sure.
recording and tracking and making sure that you're managing those risks that occur, and capturing those, is really what our focus is at this point. It is leveraging the awareness around election security and making sure that all entities are going to have some level of risks that they run into, and issues that they have to deal with. So this is a great time for organizations to be capturing that information, so that they have time to move forward for the next election. And as well as, this is the time to make sure you're prioritizing what's important to you, as an entity when it comes to elections. So from a timing perspective, I think that's the sweet spot that we're in right now.
Mhm.
The fix it in the next 2 weeks, uh, you know, is less optimistic.
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely fair. And I would imagine just being able, like you said, to manage those risks, because clearly the public wants to feel confident. I know there's been some fake news going around, kind of starting to scare people in terms of what they're supposed to do with their mail-in ballots, et cetera. So I think obviously be able to identify those risks and give advice is, at least par for the course. It's the right thing to do, right? So look, I'm just gonna ask this question, I'm dying to ask this question. Have we already been meddled with? Has there already been a hack? Is our election secure? Or is there any problems?
So, my opinion, yes, we have.
Okay.
Um, when we were doing some election security work for, again, an unnamed client, we had found indicators of compromise.
Mm,
There's no reason to think that we would not be meddled with or have not been meddled with already. Given that we're one of the three superpowers, practically the job of the other superpowers is to destabilize our environment. And creating voter confusion or a lack of confidence in the voter process is a great way to do that. But yes, I firmly believe that we have been meddled. We will be meddled with again. 4 years from now, we're going to be meddled with all over again.
mm,
So,
Yep.
mm.
And that's such a critical way of thinking. If the response is, why, it would be it wouldn't be polite for someone to mess with us, then you're going about election security thought processes the wrong way. If you're accountable, if you're responsible for managing the outcomes of an election, you must assume that domestic and foreign, um, agents are at work, to disrupt and otherwise cause risk to the election. So I think the only safe way to think is, yeah, that those activities are constant, continuous, and ongoing, and that we have a responsibility to manage those specific risks. And is every single district and every single organization doing that to the best of their ability today? Unfortunately, I don't think that's the case. I think that Some places are managing it better than others, but it's that constant looking for threats and managing of risks that's critical. I think I would think it'd be immature for anybody to sit back and go, everything's fine, everything's great. There's nothing to be concerned about. I think that would be naive.
Yeah, and I think, and that makes perfect sense, right? Because if we are talking about private sector corporations, I mean, most chief information security officers know that the mentality now is not if we will be breached, but when. And so you're constantly staying vigilant of that risk and looking for ways to detect something that has happened. And not to say that that is, kind of your scarlet letter badge, but again, it's happening to the best of them. So the whole key is that how can you respond, mitigate that risk as fast and as quick with as least damage as possible and be able to move on. So to your point, this is not meant to be absolutely a political discussion, but there is no exception to the rule for government that type of malicious activity is happening in that space as well, I would imagine.
And I think that's a great analogy. I think looking at how the private sector deals with cybersecurity risk, whether it's ransomware or whatnot, and how the public sector looks at it, the more that worldview is the same, which is there are bad actors out there, and we need to mitigate those things. And if anyone comes to us and says, we have 100% foolproof way to secure your environment, then obviously that's snake oil, right? All we can do is mitigate risks. And so we prioritize risks. We look at the different ways they can come in, whether it's an insider, whether it's a process, or in this election security world, chain of custody type of issue, or whether it's a cyber issue. We've got to balance all those different vectors of attack and come up with the most holistic and prioritized way to manage those risks, especially at this time.
And Kathleen, to touch on Mike's point, quite often we can help increase the awareness for the people that are involved.
Okay.
Every once in a while, we'll run across an election office that doesn't really understand the level of criticality that they can play on the national environment. So Harris County was not a client, which is why I'm using them as a client example. Imagine Harris County, for example, which is where Houston's at, the same election process that would handle a local situation is going to handle the presidential election. If Harris County has not understood that they could have some sort of impact one way or the other on the national landscape of who's going to run the country, then maybe they just need to understand that as an example. Quite often, some of our election officials simply don't understand how serious it is.
Yeah, and I think it just gets at age-old, again, fundamental security principles. You're going to care about the risks that have high impact, potentially high likelihood, and so this definitely falls into that bucket for all the necessary kind of factors that we've talked about. Well, guys, I know we could go on and on and on because this is quite the interesting topic, and I'm guessing a lot of people would love you to go on and on and on. But at the sake of making sure we leave it on a high note and don't get ourselves down any sort of political conversation here, I will thank you for your time. I'm so appreciative that you guys were able to spend a few minutes of your day just educating us. I know I'm thankful for your work in helping to make sure that this vote is going to go in the most fair way possible. It's very important, I know, to myself and my family and my community, and I know it goes without saying for many of the other people watching this. So appreciate all the work that you do on this on an ongoing basis, and look forward to hearing from you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah.